Hello, BookTube. Well, it's Memorial Day weekend here in the United States, which means that no matter what it feels like, June is right around the corner. Summer is almost here. June marks a lot of activity on BookTube, but it's also a time when people make their TBRs. What am I going to be reading in June? So I thought I'd make another possible June TBR. I'm calling these things in their video titles possible June TBRs, mainly in context of you. I'm going to read all these things, or have read a lot of them already. But you have a lot less time to read and a lot more obligations in your life, so you'll have to pick and choose. But if you're interested, like I am, in new releases, well, here are some more that are coming out in or around June that may interest you. I thought I should show you. We'll start with one by Adam Weymouth. This is his book Lone Wolf, and it is natural history slash conservation work of nonfiction about wolves crossing the Alps and returning to Italy. One wolf in particular, I think, is his focal point. I haven't read this yet, but it's bound to be a depressing subject. We'll see. We'll see. Wolves are opportunistic eaters. They are extremely wide-ranging. They're extremely intelligent, but they are apex predators. Then I don't know how well that will go, and by that I mean that as a euphemism for the minute they appear in Italy or anywhere else in Europe in significant numbers, they'll be extirpated, like they have been several times in the last centuries or millennia. But still, there'll be people in this book, I'm sure, who are ardent fans of wolves and what they do for an ecosystem, which is purely positive. So, might be interesting to see. This next one's going to infuriate me. It's another book on my June TBR that is going to infuriate me, even though I haven't read a word of it. This is by Michael Egnor with help from Denise O'Leary, and it is called The Immortal Mind. And the subtitle is A Neurosurgeon's Case for the Existence of the Soul. And this kind of book, this is a practicing neurosurgeon writing about how his many hours operating on human brains leads him to believe that the self, the personality, the core of morality is not dependent on the physical brain, but that in fact it must be dependent on something else, the idea of a soul. This old religious idea that you have a ghost living inside you, and that ghost is not a child, and that ghost is not a doddering old person. That ghost is somehow you fixed at a period when you were at your most effective, and that ghost has all your memory, all your personality, but it is not tied to your body. It is not a physical phenomenon. It's not tied to your body. It can, in other words, crucially, for every religion that has ever existed, it can survive the death of your body. And the reason why this is going to irritate, of course, there are billions of people in the world who believe something like that. Almost everybody listening to me believes something like that. But so that alone does not anger me. The thing that angers me is the neurosurgeon part. That's what angers me about this book, is how much damage it could do if it becomes popular. There is no evidence whatsoever for that ghost living inside you. You are a mortal being. You are a product of biochemistry, just like every other animal on Earth. There is no other animal on Earth except maybe your precious dogs and cats. And that's a little sick, but at least that's understandable. Grief takes that form. But when you look at a hog being butchered, which all of you carnivores don't look at, or you would never eat your meat again, when you look at a dead squirrel on the road or a dead raccoon on the side of the road, you do not think that some ghost, some mimeograph of that animal is now living in paradise forever. You don't think that about any animal other than yourself and maybe your dog or your cat. And the reason that you don't is because the reality is very obvious. The reality is that you are a flesh and blood animal. You do not have a soul because a soul cannot be detected. This neurosurgeon, no matter what he writes in this book, has never detected a soul. And I will read it. I will read it with an open mind. But if his contention is that he doesn't think that your personality, the core of your morality, your memories can be changed by neurosurgery, then I invite him to undergo neurosurgery himself. If you're saying that in your experience operating on people's brains, you have never seen that you can change who a person is down to the very basics of what they believe, what they think, how they react to things, through manipulating the physical processes of their brain. If you're saying that, then in order to verify that and make a bestseller of your book, I really think that you ought to opt for elective surgery to have a part of your brain removed. If what you're saying is true in this book, it shouldn't matter which part. So just have a part of your brain removed. Now, of course, that can't happen because surgery to hurt your body is reserved for one category in the United States and nowhere else. Nowhere else in the medical profession can you get a doctor to agree to harm you just because you want them to. In all areas of medicine but one, that is illegal. And so completely and obviously unethical that no doctor would do it anyway, even if it were legal. So you can't get a doctor to do this. But you could always do it yourself, right? If you're a neurosurgeon, then you know perfectly well how to use a very sharp ice pick to lobotomize yourself. Why don't you do it? Take an ice pick, put it in your right tear duct, take a ball peen hammer, take a few whacks. If what you say in this book is true, you're not going to be hurting anything of your essence, so go ahead and do it. But you won't at all. And if you got some sort of a gigantic golf ball-sized tumor in your head, you'd want it removed. And you wouldn't want it removed by just anybody. You'd want it removed by the most delicate, most experienced neurosurgeon you could find. The thing that angers me, I haven't read the book. For all I know, it's purely personal and purely anecdotal. It sure doesn't sound that way to me from the subtitle. And presumably the author had a part in what the book was titled and subtitled. You do not have an immortal mind. You do not. Your soul does not exist. There is no ghost living inside your body. You are your brain. You are your memories, your feelings, your intuitions, your interests. All of it is your brain. The neurochemistry in your brain, the neuroactivity in your brain, which is fed by oxygen-rich blood pumped by your heart. When you stop doing that, the brain dies. Past a certain point, a minute, maybe 2 minutes, it can't be revived. None of those things can be revived. They don't go anywhere. They just dissolve. They can't be reconstituted. That's it. That's all. I know that it's a very comfortable belief among religious people that some part of you lives somewhere else. That is a belief that has been extremely stressed by religious leaders because they are the gatekeepers of whether or not that immortal thing in you goes someplace you want as opposed to someplace you don't want. For a neurosurgeon to write a book saying, I'll have to read the book to see, his own experience has incontrovertibly shown him that every aspect of what a human is, every aspect of who you are, can be manipulated in 5 minutes with a scalpel, or erased in 5 minutes with a scalpel. Every element of his experience tells him that's true. So is he writing a book directly against everything that he himself has seen? I don't know. I have no idea. We'll see. And this next one is by Monty Burke. I read a book of his, I think a couple of years ago, called Lords of the Fly. It's about fishing. It's about the so-called sport of fishing, where you take a wire, you load a barbed metal hook with some sort of lure designed to trick a fish into trying to bite it, into thinking that it's food. You either load that barbed metal hook with actual food, worms or something like that, bait fish, or you load it with something that is going to move and look like food. And the purpose is to trick a fish into biting onto that hook where it will hook itself. It won't be able to dislodge the hook, but of course it will fight against both the pain and the feeling that something absolutely catastrophic is happening to it. And that's what fishing is. You're fighting with this fish. It's not a fight. It's not a fight. You're fighting with this fish in order to land it and eat it. You with an absolute abundance of edible food all around you. Now, because you kind of want to kill something. And if you can add in torture to the killing, well, so much the better. So you would think that I wouldn't like to read books about fishing, but a lot of them are well written. And this is Monty Burke's new book, Rivers Always Reach the Sea, which is a collection of stories about fishing, profiles of fishers, probably a lot of good nature descriptions. This guy's really good at that. Most angling writers are really good at that, starting all the way back with Isaac Walton. there it can be talent involved in that. This whole procedure is horrifyingly monstrous. I have known in my life avid fishermen who came to that realization and didn't give up the sport. They loved it. So they would still put on all their old clothes. They would still put on their hip waders, but they wouldn't bait their hook. They wouldn't even put a hook. They would just cast a line. Or they would cast a line with a piece of bait tied to the line, but no hook. So if it attracts a fish, well, the fish does get a meal. But they were in it mainly for the quiet, solitude, the peace, the time away, the time to think. They didn't need to hook and torture something to death that they don't even need to eat. I've known anglers who did that. But I've read a huge number of accounts from people who do the whole barbarous ritual. And I don't agree with the ritual, but we'll see if there's any writing involved in it that I might like. Then we have something by Judith Stove. This is Marcus Aurelius and his legacy. This is all about Marcus. In the Dude Bro world, those of us in the Dude Bro world refer to him as Marcus. We don't call him Marcus Aurelius. And of course, it doesn't mean anything to us that he was an emperor of an empire, of the Roman Empire. We would esteem him anyway. We would esteem his dumb derivative little book anyway. Because of the real value of the thought. It doesn't really matter to us that he was an emperor. And that by extension, we are, oh, never mind. But we'll see. I don't know what kind of legacy Judith Stove has in mind here. Marcus Aurelius did very much have a legacy, a number of them. Is this going to be a work of Roman history, as is almost never done with Marcus Aurelius? Or is it going to be more, I've got something to say about his Dude Bro legacy, his philosophical legacy? I always smile when I hear the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius referred to as a work of philosophy. There's hope for every ape in Africa. I don't know. Will she lean into... is this looking over its shoulder at the fact that this figure has been venerated by the Dude Bros? If she's trying to sell to that community, I have something horrible to tell her about what they think of women. But we'll see. It could be serious Roman history, in which case I'll definitely want to read it. Then we have an anthology. I think it might have been recommended to me by Kindle Unlimited. And I think it might be a digital-only thing. It's an anthology of Regency romances called Dukes All Summer Long. And look at all those authors. You couldn't fit all those authors into a normal-sized anthology, a print anthology. I would think you couldn't do it. So I think this is a gigantic ebook. I haven't dipped into it yet to see. I should stress what I always do, the anachronism on the cover. It's a mighty nice anachronism, I agree, but it is a serious anachronism at a time when I imagine these are Regency romances. They're historical, and they're about dukes, so they're probably Regencies. A fashionable man would have been ashamed to look like that. If you'd shown this to the ton, to the fashionable world of the Regency era, they'd have said it was a blacksmith or a day laborer. They wouldn't have liked him not having his shirt on. They certainly wouldn't have liked him having that hairdo or him looking directly at you. And a duke would not look like this. No, they wouldn't want to. But it's all right. It's an anachronism I can live with. Then we have the latest novel by Joyce Carol Oates. This is called Fox. I know nothing about it. I still read almost everything that Joyce Carol Oates comes out with. She comes out with about 5 books a year. And I still read them, most of them. But I honestly don't know what to think of her anymore. I really don't. I don't know what to make of her literary legacy. She's no spring chicken. I don't think it's untoward to talk about her legacy. I don't know what to do with the 70%, maybe 60% of books that she writes in the 21st century that feel like they were simply dashed off. I think a part of me tells me, it says you're hurting your literary legacy to be so prolific. But another part of me says, well, if I were a best-selling author who was guaranteed a publication of anything that I write by a major publisher, well, I might think I had a lot to say. Maybe she does. I never found any of those books to be bad. I probably won't find Fox to be bad. I don't know what to make of her superabundance, so I have resisted making anything of it. Then we have more fiction. This is Edward St. Aubin. This is his new novel, Parallel Lines. He is the author of the Patrick Melrose novels. I'm trying not to block the bean, as I know you all want to see her there. He is another author that, like Joyce Carol Oates, I think he's obviously serious. He's obviously worth taking seriously. So I read him. I have to say the last few books of his, I haven't quite known what to make of them. They haven't, I won't say phoned in, but they haven't seemed to me to be all there. So I'm not, the Patrick Melrose novels are brilliant. 3 of them are incredibly brilliant. I don't know. It takes a while to really discard that or to say, well, it was a fluke. I don't believe it either. This is a very intelligent author. I just don't know what I'm going to make of this. Fortunately, I won't have to write about it, I don't think. Then we have something by Frank Close. This is called Destroyer of Worlds. It is a new history of the nuclear age. What that means. The title of the book, of course, is a reference to the verse of poetry that Oppenheimer allegedly was muttering to himself when he saw one of his bombs go off. I have become a destroyer of worlds. I have become death. I don't know quite what to expect of this. I've read other histories of the nuclear age. This seems to have a bit of a foreboding angle to it. It's the nuclear age, but it's not all the cities whose electricity is provided by nuclear power. Instead, it's a bomb on the cover and that quote. So we'll see. I don't know that I've ever read this author, so I don't have any idea what to expect. But as a sweeping history of the nuclear age, which is my age, that's the age that I've lived in, should be inherently interesting. Then we have something by Richard Hargreaves. I think I've shown this on this channel before. This is Opening the Gates of Hell. This is his new history, a big, nice, heavy thing, of the beginning of Hitler's Operation Barbarossa, his invasion of the Soviet Union. I have not really dipped into this thing, just a bit, but not much, because I think that I want somebody else to review it. When you see Operation Barbarossa, don't you think David Murphy? I think I probably want David Murphy to review this if you can find the time. I'm getting a couple of reviews from him, so I'm starting to load him with books that I want him to review, which I know is not feasible, because he has like 15 jobs and probably a social life of some kind, whatever you can have in the upper Midwest. So he doesn't have all the time in the world to be doing reviews of all the things I want him to do, especially the kind of review that he likes to write, which is pretty thorough. He wants to file them away for the ages. He wants to have all the T's crossed and the I's dotted. That takes time. That takes work to do. It doesn't take, in his case, as in my case, it doesn't take trips to the library. He has his home library is enough. It's easily sufficient to handle. But I will read this thing before I pass it on. Then we have, this is by Alfred Haft. I think this is an oversized thing. This is Hiroshige. This is a big art retrospective of Hiroshige, who I've been really enjoying this. The sketchbooks of Hiroshige, but this is from 40 years ago. And it's not everything. It's not even close to everything. Whereas this seems to me to be one of those big, oversized art companion overviews of an absolutely sublime artist. So maybe one to keep. I'm often conflicted about getting oversized art books. I love them, but I usually don't keep them because they take up God's own amount of space. And sometimes when I get rid of them, I regret that. There was an academic publisher, I think it was Yale, that did a whole set of books on John Singer Sargent. Not just the famous portraits, but everything else in volumes on their own, working their way through every stage of his artistic life. And I got every one of those volumes from Yale, reviewed some of them, but I didn't keep any of them. And of course, they'll be sinfully expensive now to rebuy. All right. Well, this next one's by Tom Arnold Forster. This is another book I would like David Murphy to review. This is that new slim intellectual biography of Walter Lippmann. It's a third or fourth the size of Walter Lippmann and the American Century, which one of you very kindly just sent me. So it's not meant to be really, his upbringing and his time at school and whatnot. It's an intellectual biography, which is an interesting angle, but just calling something an intellectual biography already gives you all sorts of wiggle room for what you're going to do with a biography, and especially what you're not going to do. What is an intellectual life? If you're a public intellect, which Walter Lippmann was, then what's an intellectual life? How is it different from your non-intellectual life. But I have found this thing to be pretty smart, pretty sharp. And so if I were going to review this, my review would concentrate on what is meant by an intellectual life. How is this not a biography of Walter Lippmann? It isn't. So why isn't it? And where isn't it? And is that satisfying? But I want David Murphy to review this, so I don't know what angle he will take. But that comes out in June. Oh my God. All right. It was another David Murphy. I'm not going to load him with all these books to do, obviously, because he doesn't have enough time to do all these. But this is by Tim Boveri, and it's called Allies at War. It's another angle at a subject that's come up before on this channel, which is the fact that the Allies during World War II were uneasy in their allyship for a number of different reasons. Franklin Roosevelt wanted the British Empire and British trade routes and British concessions and whatnot, and a huge amount of British wealth just handed over for all that we're going to do, for our common cause. And Winston Churchill, of course, was imperialist to his eyeballs, so didn't want that to happen. So there's friction there. But Winston Churchill and Franklin Roosevelt were not monsters, and Stalin was a murderous, homicidal, genocidal monster who, by the time World War II was over, was guilty of at least as many deaths as Hitler, probably 3 times as many, and went on to be guilty of a lot more. And Roosevelt and Churchill knew that. They needed him, but that was not friendly either. So, there have been many, many books on this subject. This is the latest one, comes out in June. We'll see what there is to it. Then we can end with a massive work. This is like 800 pages long. I think we've seen it on this channel. The author is Bernd Rook, and it's translated by Patrick Baker. This is The World at First Light. This is a new translation, a translation of his new history of the Italian Renaissance at huge length. So who knows? I have not dug into this yet. I keep waiting for the finished copy, which I'm not going to get today because it's a federal holiday. I keep waiting for the finished copy in order to really bash at this thing. I read probably half of it in the advanced copy that I have, but it was annoying me. The advanced copy was annoying me. So not the book, just the physical dimensions of the copy were annoying me. So I put it down and figured you're going to want to interrogate this thing prior to reviewing it. You're going to want to interrogate it. And you're not going to do that with an advanced copy that barely has any supporting stuff printed in it. So wait for the finished copy, and it hasn't arrived yet. I should put out a polite word to Princeton first thing tomorrow, and see what the story is with that, if I'm even scheduled to get a finished copy. But I'm always up for new writings on the Renaissance. Always I am, and there aren't as many as I would like. So gladly, I will. Once I get the finished copy, I will gladly dig into it and give it a lot of time before I write about it. And there you go. That is yet another Friday Reads no, not Friday Reads. This is another June TBR. So we can do a few more June TBRs. So do you have a kind of working look at what the new releases are for June? See if any of them interest you. Whether you'd like to maybe get your library to order some, or get your bookstore to order some, or whatnot. We'll do a few more because there's a lot coming out in June. It's a big month. But I'll wrap this up for now. I hope some of these were of interest to you, and we'll talk later. Thank you, BookTube.